Simon, thank you very much for joining us.
Great to be here, Sebastian.
Always nice to see you. I'd love to start by understanding a little bit more about what Ingenia is about, what you've been through and where you're heading. That's all right.
So Ingenia, which is the former ING Community Living Fund, we're now one of the largest owners, operators and developers of seniors communities across Australia. Around 4 years ago, we identified a niche market of affordable seniors housing. So that's really represented by two key parts of our business. We're the largest owner of seniors rental accommodation, which we call Ingenia Garden Villages. And then secondly, we're now one of the largest owners in Australia of land lease communities, which is for seniors, where we separate the ownership of the land and the house, and that's our key growth component in our business. Across the country today, we employ nearly 600 people, and we have 68 operational assets across all states of Australia except for South Australia.
Brilliant, thank you very much. I'd like to take a little bit of a different slant and actually take you back to sort of a helicopter macroeconomic view. Your view on what's impacting the REIT market, both from a macroeconomic point of view, geopolitical point of view, can you give us any insights as to how you're seeing those factors impact the REIT market?
Yeah, I mean, I think Ingenia operates in a very niche or specific part of the REIT market, but I think a lot of our investors, probably 12 months ago, most of the conversations we were having with investors were larger onshore and offshore REIT investors chasing yield. Yeah. Now, over the last 6 months, we've seen a lot of small cap fund managers coming in who are chasing growth. And Ingenia, we're forecasting between 30 to 40% EBIT growth in the current financial year. There wouldn't be any other REITs that screen as high as that. So the conversations we're having with investors now is quite different to what we were having 6 or 12 months ago.
Yeah, brilliant. That's a fantastic story. And in terms of what's impacting your business from an operational point of view, so not capital markets or some of the sort of macroeconomic factors, but just operationally, where are the challenges for you?
Yeah, probably, there's three things that spring to mind. One is finding good people. A lot of the seniors housing communities and holiday parks that we own are in more remote coastal locations, so finding good quality people is always challenging. What we're finding is our operating costs, particularly around council and government imposts and energy and water, are going up at a much quicker rate than our revenue line. So we're constantly having to look at smarter ways of how we can put a cap on those costs or try and recover them. And we've probably also been a little bit of a victim of our own success in that 2 or 3 years ago we probably had the market to ourselves, and now there's a lot of new capital, a lot of new participants coming in, and that's putting pressure on prices, it's raising vendors' expectations. So we're having to be, maintain very much our discipline in the way we allocate capital across the business.
It sort of leads on to the next question, is that one of the things that we're always asked by our clients and contacts is how do the REITs mitigate risk? I mean, what's your strategy to mitigate risk, I suppose, for Ingenia and the shareholders?
Yeah, I think operating in the seniors housing market, probably one of the key risks that myself and the board and the executive team think about at the moment is reputational risk. Some of our peers, there's been quite a bit of publicity, very terrible publicity in the paper about what's gone in some of our competitors, and I think that means that it's a great opportunity to reassess the way that you do business yourself, and are there ways that we can be doing that differently. I mean, I think I'd love to say that we never have any issues with our residents who live in our communities, but I think what I'd like to say differentiates us is the personal approach we take in responding to those issues that do come up from time to time. We have significant exposure to financial markets risk. Our debt profile is continuing to grow, so making sure that we are keeping an eye on what's going on with interest rates, going on with our serviceability of debt. And then, lastly, probably around operational risks, and that would be, to my earlier point about the cost of power, the cost of electricity, the cost of water is going up by a multiple of CPI, which is normally the way we increase our revenue line. Yeah. So we're constantly having to evolve our business to make sure that our margins don't get squeezed or crimped.
And the development, I suppose, or the growth of your business,
yeah,
has been outstanding, obviously. Where's the next level of growth? How do you find good assets? We've talked in the past about the difficulty in finding assets in Australia, or well-priced assets in Australia, I should say. What's your strategy for that?
Yeah, I mean, our problem's not really finding the assets. We have a full-time team of 5 people who work full-time on origination, and so we're constantly out in market every deal we've done is working with the mum and dad parkie directly. So we're not waiting on agents, to bring us their deal flow, because those deals are typically well overpriced. But probably about 3 years ago, we made the decision to more focus on undertaking greenfields development. So in the next 6 months, we're launching our first 2 new greenfields projects. So we're starting to build our own communities of the future. Probably the real threshold issue for Ingenia at the moment is capital. We've been quite an acquisitive company over the last 4 years. We've raised quite a bit of capital. We've now made it very clear to our shareholders that we're looking to fund the next phase of growth internally within the business, and that's primarily going to be through recycling non-core and regional assets and then reinvesting that capital into the next stage of growth. So there's certainly more competitors out there, but I think Ingenia over the last 4 years has developed a really good track record in the industry where when we shake hands on a deal, that's the deal we do. We don't try and do what Dennis Hickey once taught me was the New York close, which is you have the final negotiation on the day of settlement. We've built a good reputation over the years, and for us it's about how we fund growth as opposed to how do we find the growth. Yeah,
I'm keen to explore a little bit more about what you talked about holiday parks and starting from scratch, so to speak. What's your view on this sort of political and economic uncertainty around the globe, and have you looked at the demographic and the travel plans that people might have? Are you seeing a better return locally? Is that why you're investing in that part of the business?
Look, it's fair to say that in the 7 years I've been with ING and Ingenia, the first 2 years was spent retreating back to Australia, so expanding back overseas is probably not top of mind at the moment. But we see that our business in Australia is very defensive. It's underwritten by 2 of the key mega drivers of Australia at the moment, which is an ageing population and secondly a housing affordability crisis. So our core business, which is affordable seniors housing, delivers front and centre on that. Secondly, to your point, we do have an emerging holidays business. So in some of the caravan parks that Ingenia's acquired over the years, we've actually identified that the highest and best use of those assets, at least in the short to medium term, is running them for holidays. What we're finding is that with the ageing of the population, a lot of seniors now want to downsize, they want to buy a caravan, they want to see Australia, and our holidays business fits in perfectly with that. We would also expect that should there be some political or should something happen with North Korea and America, unfortunately, but that would probably be there'll be some positives for us in that people wouldn't tend to holiday overseas as much. People would spend their money locally. Our holidays business is really domestically focused and highly aligned with our core business, which is affordable seniors housing.
Taking you off to a slight tangent, but the REIT market generally, how do you view our REIT market compared to the global REIT markets, and do you think it's going to expand or contract in the next 18 to 24 months?
Yeah, look, I mean, I'm constantly amazed that the continuing tightening in cap rates that we're witnessing across core assets in Australia, and every conversation I have with CEOs of other REITs, it's all about is that the top of the market? Do we ring the bell, or is there another 25 or 50 basis points to come? And I think in the current stable economic environment where interest rates, from a generational perspective, are very cheap, and I don't think there's any near-term catalyst for a significant increase in rates. I would still think there's probably a bit more pricing improvement to come through. That said, the next key drivers for Ingenia over the next 2 to 3 years is really developing our own community. So we certainly keep an eye on what the rest of the market's doing. We talk to our banks very regularly, but we've very much set our own strategy and we're very much for executing on that. And we see what other people are doing, but we're very clear on what our strategy looks like, and now it's all about execution for us.
Yeah, you're very different to some of the other trusts. I think consolidation is playing its part in the market at the moment just because it's that difficult to find quality assets, so the portfolio effect is working for them. Slightly different for you, I suppose.
Well, just on that, in the last 12 months we've seen one of the largest US land lease community groups move into Australia, and 6 months ago we saw the first Chinese group. So we're certainly not immune to what's going on in international markets. In Australia, our market, affordable seniors housing is very much an emerging asset class, whereas in the US, there's probably 10 REITs with a combined market cap of 20 or $30 billion that operate in that space. So we're certainly not immune to overseas competitors coming in. We've got our portfolio set, and for us now it's really about execution.
What sort of innovation are you using to drive your business from an operational perspective?
Yeah, I mean, internally within the business, we've just set up our innovation hub, which we call Ingenious. But more specifically, we're putting in solar and batteries at all the new homes and cabins that we're installing. We're putting in grey water. We're looking to monetise new income streams. So as an example, in one of our larger caravan parks in Sydney, we've put in a childcare centre. So we're just going to be the landlord, and we're bringing in a professional operator to run that. So I think what we've realised is we own a really large and valuable land bank, centred around the capital cities and key coastal markets, and it's really now what are the levers within that we can execute on. But there's a lot of other innovative ideas that are, I guess, coming together within Ingenious, but I couldn't share those with you at the moment.
Well, we look forward to witnessing them soon then.
Great.
Simon, thank you very much for your time today. We really appreciate your insights to the A-REIT survey.
It's been great to be here, Sebastian, and hopefully in the next year or two, Ingenia can be back up the top of your survey. Thank you.
Thank you again.